today who is honoring with his presence tonight. He is doing a presentation on found art. The title of the presentation is Seeing Through the Eyes of the Artist. And Bruce has, as you can see behind him, wonderful art that is made of all kinds of different components. And it's interesting to look at the pieces of art, and he will explain what the components are and how he put them all together. Bruce has a wide background in art. He has a liberal arts degree, and he also has a master's degree in education and many years of teaching, and has a studio over at Western Avenue. So if you want to see Bruce in his studio, go over to Western Avenue on November 6th and go to the 4th floor, and you'll find Bruce. So let's start with the presentation with Bruce Wood tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure being here. I'm going to share with you tonight, hopefully, my story and how I got here. It's very convoluted, but we'll just see what happens here. I grew up in Massachusetts, very middle-class family. My father owned a gas station. My mother was a stay-at-home mom, but she was always into crafts. She liked to do things and make things and craft. We always won the Halloween contest because my mother made our costumes. So she was very clever. I was never encouraged to do art, but I was not discouraged from doing it. So I went to school here in Massachusetts. I didn't have a good experience with an art teacher in junior high, so I didn't take any art in high school. And all of a sudden I'm 18 years old and out of high school and trying to figure out where to go. And at that time, the Vietnam War was going on very strong. And I happened to get a scholarship to go out to Arizona to go to school. So I thought, yeah, we'll go out to Arizona, either Arizona or Vietnam. And I thought, well, we'll see how Arizona is. So I went out to Arizona. And that was an amazing, life-changing event going out there because it was so different. It was like another world. Everything was different from New England. The palm trees and giant cactus and vast horizons and big mountains and huge clouds in the sky and spectacular sunsets. It really amplified how I saw things in the world. And I tried to soak it all in. And I think that's where I also realized that I see things a little bit differently than a lot of people. Where others were seeing houses and cars and trees, I was seeing shapes and shadows and textures and patterns. And that had more interest to me than the cars, the houses, and the trees. So I took all that in and just loved traveling around Arizona and seeing the difference that is just, around the corner. Now, in today's standards, it's not a big deal to go out to Arizona. But in 1968, it was a big adventure to go out to Arizona. So it was a 2-year college that I went to. And I didn't have a major because I really wasn't decided on what I wanted to do yet. So I was just taking liberal studies and, just having a good time. I was on the wrestling team. It was a wrestling scholarship that I got. So I was on the wrestling team, messing around on campus and having a good time. And then the last semester that I was there, I saw some students doing a raku pottery firing. And I was amazed by it. And I said, that's what I want to do. Now I found what I want to do. I want to do art, and I want to do ceramics, and I want to do what those students are doing. So I graduated from that college with an associate's degree, and then got married and had 2 kids, and decided I would like to go back to school. So I applied to Northern Arizona University and got accepted. And I went out there. We were living in Massachusetts, so we picked up everything, moved out to Arizona again, this time in Northern Arizona. And decided I was going to be an art major. So at registration, I walked into the registration office, or the building that they had set up for registration, and went to the art department, and the poor soul that was sitting there, I said, well, I'm here and I want to be an art major. And fortunately for me, they didn't know what they were doing. They said, okay, you can be an art major. You just have to take these classes, and you'll be off and running. And I said, great. So over the next few years, I took every art class that I could at the university. I had gotten my liberal studies out of the way at the junior college, so I didn't have to take any real classes. I could just do art, all day. And it was a lot of fun, and I learned an awful lot. I did feel like I was at a little disadvantage because some of the students that I was with had been taking art since they were very young. And I hadn't really taken any art, so I wasn't up to their speed yet, I guess. But since I had immersed myself in the art program, I quickly caught up and became a lab assistant in the art department, and just really kind of took over everything that was there. So it was a lot of fun. And I think in Arizona, that's where I realized that I see things differently, and seeing those things and wanting to kind of expand and work on those was really my passion. So after that, I went on and continued into graduate school and got a master's degree in art education, and then went into teaching. I taught at the university for a while, taught at a junior college for a while, and then teaching jobs kind of dried up, so we moved back to Massachusetts. And I taught at a high school back here, and then things really dried up and I was out of work. So through a series of events, I ended up working for some engineering companies that in their art departments. And it was kind of an odd situation because I saw things from an artist's viewpoint, where the engineers saw things from an engineering viewpoint. And usually the engineering viewpoint was very straight, strict, and regimented. And I was always messing them up by going off kilter into the art world. But I think because of that, we came up with some pretty good things. But it also taught me how to engineer, how to put things together, how to make things work and function together. We had a saying called form, fit, and function. And it was when things needed to work, this is what you had to do. And these are the criteria you had to work with. So with that, I gained all that knowledge, but didn't do an awful lot of art because I was trying to make a living for my family. Eventually, I got an art studio over at Western Avenue, and was excited that I'm finally getting back into art as much as I can. And when I moved in, I was doing lamp work class and jewelry. My degree at Northern Arizona University was in ceramics, but that always took a lot of square footage, so when I moved from Arizona to here, I had to leave a lot of the equipment behind. So I had picked up doing a lamp work class and the jewelry and moved into the studio. And it was like being back in college again. It was just so much fun being around other artists and trading ideas and trading inspiration and trading enthusiasm for the arts. And because of that, my art grew and I started doing other things. I found steampunk and thought, well, this is really nice. I like this steampunk genre. And then there was another artist on the floor that was using old things and putting them together into new things, and I thought I like that too. Mm-hmm. So I kind of combined the two and started doing found object sculpture. Now, for those of you that don't know what found object sculpture is, it's taking old, discarded, and rejected items and taking them and repurposing them into new items. And this is probably a good, simple example of found object sculpture. The body for this was a vacuum cleaner. And the fins on it were the fins off a toy airplane. The rest of it was just some scrap plastic that I took a heat gun to and just bent it around, and then painted it to look like a trout. So
Genius.
it's a trout, but it's all made from recycled items. And that vision of seeing things that are there but not there helps me in doing this, on putting those things together. When I look for things, I'm looking for I have to kind of forget what I know. So when I'm picking up things, I don't see like a squirt gun or a ball or a doorknob. I see shapes. I see that that's a round, and that's a long, and that's a bendy, and that's, different things like that I can take and now use those into my sculptures. Because people will ask, well, how do you see to put that in there? Well, you got to forget about what it is and what you can use it for.
So do you do any preliminary sketches as you're looking at objects to put this together, or do you just start constructing?
Usually I start constructing. One of the questions that I get often is, do the parts that you have inspire you to make something, or do you have an idea and then find the parts to make that?
Yeah.
And it's a little bit of both, but I would say mostly it's the parts that tell me what I'm going to do. I was cleaning the studio one day, and I picked up the handle of a vacuum cleaner in one hand and a dust buster in the other hand. And I was just going to move it over there. So I picked it up and I went, oh, a shark. And those two things came together and made a steampunk shark. And it was that simple. That was the basis. That was the base of what I was going to make. And those two pieces told me that. So I said, okay. And then I can rummage through my stuff and find the embellishments to put on that to complete the project. There have been times where I wanted to make something specific for an event. And so I found those items to make that. For example, this item over here is a wall hanging that I did for the Merrimack Repertory Theater for one of it hung in the lobby for one of their plays, which was about a woman who was a secret superhero. And this one I called the villain. So this was her arch enemy, the villain. So this one was made specifically for that event. So what I did is I said, well, I need something if I'm going to have a villain. And I had this piece here, which was actually a Darth Vader mask.
Okay.
But I knew that if I put the Darth Vader mask the right way up, all it's going to do is scream Darth Vader. Yeah. And that's all people are going to see is Darth Vader, Darth Vader. So what I did is I turned it upside down and then added all this embellishments on it and kind of put a little thing out down here like it's, coming out of a mouth. And it still has those eyes that are very prominent. But until you look close at it, you don't realize it's Darth Vader. But that whole aspect of, the steampunk and the kind of mysterious elements that go on it is what I was trying to accomplish in this piece.
So realistically, how many different components are on that piece?
Wow. Holy mackerel. Well, you got the Darth Vader mask, and then you got some
Just copper tubing, or?
It's Romex wire shielding.
Okay.
I have, some handles, there's combs, there's, a piece of a alien up here.
What is the base that it's built on?
Oh, the base was I think it was a mirror.
Oh.
It was a frame, and there was a mirror in it that had broken, and somebody was throwing it away. So I took that, and then, put a piece of wood in the back to mount everything to. I have a kind of a technique that I use with the coloring and the paint. I use a paint, actually I use two paints. Actually I use more than two, but I have two paints.
Oh, yeah, come on, tell us the secrets here.
And I use spray paint that has two different solvents in it. So I'll spray one down first, and then while that's still wet, I'll spray the second one over it. And because the solvents don't mix, they break apart.
Okay.
And that breaking makes a nice mottled look on that surface. I'm not sure whether you can actually see it on this one or not.
You can see that, yes.
And it's almost controllable. I say almost controllable because it has a mind of its own. But that randomness about it is also very pleasing to me. That, you know, it's almost like it's old and it's supposed to be that way, and that's what the piece is telling me it needs to be.
Okay.
So that was made specifically for that, while other times, like this, I saw the body of this fish, and it was a natural body. I mean, what am I going to do? Say no? Another short story. I was in. People ask me sometimes, where do you get your stuff? You know, where do you find all your components? Well, I find them everywhere, as long as I'm looking for them. Mm-hmm. You just keep an open mind, and they show up. Now, I do visit flea markets and thrift stores, and now people are giving me things that they want to throw out, and they just give them to me.
Oh, I'd love to have you come to my basement.
The number of times I have heard that is incredible. I got a barn full of stuff. You know? And although it looks very random on what I pick, I'm very specific about what I want. You know, and I kind of go through a checklist in my head as I'm looking for stuff, because I mean, I want to know what's it made out of. Is it wood? Is it plastic? Is it metal? Will it connect with something else? Can I actually use it? I mean, I've come across great pieces, but I can't use them because I can't do anything with it but this. And there are some plastics. I use mostly plastic, and there are some plastics that don't hold paint very well.
Oh.
It either peels off, or I've had pieces that I've painted, and then when the summer comes and everything gets hot, that the paint gets sticky again.
Oh.
So and those things I have to run through my mind very quickly as to, you know, I pick it up and say, okay, no. And then, yeah, I got that one, you know. So I find the things everywhere, and I look for those different textures and shapes and things. In fact, I have a bin of some stuff.
Okay.
So let's look at some stuff. I'll just pull it out of here. So when I find things, sometimes I don't know what I'm going to do with them.
Okay.
So these are lampshades,
Yes.
but they're such a nice shape. And what are you going to do with them? I mean, by themselves, they're just kind of a half. But what I've done is I've mounted some wood on the inside of one, and I take the other one and I can put those together and screw them together, and now that makes, what does that make? That makes the body
Of your fish, yes.
of a fish. So this is a green piranha made from two items very similar to this.
Okay.
And I'll get back to that in a second. This is a fan base that I took all the guts out of, and I love this. This nice pattern, this repetition that's on here. The bottom part is the bottom part of a Nerf gun. There's just a wooden handle on one side, and this is a piece of a lamp on the front end of it. And that will be some type of gun, some type of bazooka or something when I get finished with it. But you can see all the different parts of it. And what I like to do is, after I'm done with the parts, or building it, I like to hide all the parts. So I will paint it one continuous color. And so all the parts kind of blend together, and you really have to work to pull them apart. And again, this is where my experience in engineering comes back to me, because I can take things and say, okay, how are we going to fit this onto that, onto this, onto that, and make it all work? And I'm not sure how, but it always works out.
Oh, okay.
And again, the pieces most of the time tell me what comes next. So there's that. Look at that. What a great piece. I have no idea what I'm going to use it for, but that's the type of things that I will look for. Something that I don't know what to do with, but it intrigues me. So there's two mantras that I try to go by. The first one is find another right answer. A lot of times in life we're trying to solve problems and looking for solutions of things. So we work and we look and we look and we look, and we find a solution. But what happens is, as soon as you find a solution, you stop looking anymore. So I purposely force myself to look, and the first solution may be a right answer. It may be the answer. But I push myself to go a little bit further and say, okay, what is another right answer? Is there something else that's just as good or maybe better? And if not, then I use the original. But if I keep looking, sometimes I'll find a better right answer. So that kind of mantra of working that way helps me create things that go beyond the obvious. That's my other mantra. Go beyond the obvious. A lot of people will say, well, look at here's a piece, you could make some eyeballs out of this. If somebody says I can make some eyeballs out of it, the last thing I want to do is make eyeballs out of it. Because that's the obvious.
It's too cliche.
Yeah, exactly. Too cliche.
Yeah.
Somebody says, you could take these posts and make legs out of them. Not going to do it. You know, if it looks like legs, it has to be antennas or something. It has to be something totally different. So I don't know what I'll do with that, but we'll see. This was another Nerf gun. This is going to be an airship. Mm-hmm. I have some airplane wings on it. These even has propellers. There's some hoses coming out of it. I had something in here. That's one thing I do sometimes is I'll be working on something. I'm not sure how I'm going to finish it, so I'll put it aside and I say, okay, I'll get back to that. And I start working on something else and say, oh yeah, that will look great over here. So I go over here and I steal this from here and I use it on this one. And then I work on this one. I say, all right, that's great. And I go back to this one, I go, hey. What happened?
Are you ever really done with one project?
Yes. And as an artist, sometimes,
Yeah.
When do you know that you're finished?
Yes.
And that's difficult. But if I'm stealing things out of my own projects, sometimes they don't get finished. I've had this for several years now, trying to get back to it because I stole the back piece for something else. So, but I'm amazed at the toys that they make these days. This is a squirt gun, but look at the shapes of that, And what I'll do is I'll just take little pieces, like I may want to take this piece off the back and use it for something, or just the handle, or the top of it, or I may put some wings on this and make this into a spaceship. I mean, there's no rules that say you have to use the whole thing or just pieces of things. You just use whatever the piece is telling you to use.
Now, do you get a lot of people who are into the steampunk coming into your shop or on your website?
I do. There's a big steampunk movement in Russia, and I have a lot of Russian people following me, and they make some beautiful costumes. And people that know steampunk, they find me. People that don't know steampunk, I educate them.
Okay.
And it's hard because steampunk is such a wide genre. Mostly it's pre-Columbian or Victorian that's made its way to the 21st century with all the elaborates and things that were run by steam, and now it's in the 21st century, run by steam. Very industrial. So I don't know whether a fish fits into an industrial, genre, but I really don't care, because I enjoy the fish.
But your light, the pieces that I've seen, when you do the lights in the domes.
Yes.
That's definitely it.
Yeah, I have a line of steampunk lamps that I make that are enclosed in glass domes, and that's purposely made in the steampunk genre. And those are a lot of fun to do. And those just came by accident. I had one of the glass domes, and it was a lamp, and it was all ready, and I had a whole bunch of vacuum tubes and other pieces, and I said, well, maybe I'll just put them together and make a lamp. I put it together and made a lamp, and I put it on Instagram and said, hey, look what I did. And somebody said, I want to buy it. And I said,
that's the best thing for an artist.
I said, great, let's do some more. So I have many lamps in my studio that are steampunk. I found this piece right here.
It looks like the head of a turkey.
I thought it looked like the head of a mosquito.
Oh, yeah, okay. With
But a turkey, yeah. So what I did is I took that was the beginning of this piece, and it's not done yet. But that was the beginning, and this is a little car it looks like a little spaceship car that I mounted to the head of the mosquito. This is the container inside a squirt gun.
Oh.
And I glued all these.
They look like rivets.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I glued them all on to look like rivets, and I actually scored it to look like it had seams in it. The challenge is, I'm ready to go with this. I can make some wings, but I need to find how to make some mosquito legs, which are difficult because they're so thin, and they're very big. So I've been holding on to this, thinking, okay, sometime mosquito legs are going to pop into my vision, and I'm going to grab those and I'll finish this piece. I've already got the wings, but the legs are difficult. Legs are hard to make, for me, in my opinion, because I want them to look really cool.
Plus, they have to carry the weight of the piece.
Exactly.
Stand.
So
Yes.
that's why you see where I make fish, because they don't have legs.
Ah, okay.
Here, we'll look at the camera. Yeah. So here's another piece that I've been waiting for inspiration to come to find the legs, and then I'll put the wings on it. Hey, what else we got here? Here is another squirt gun. I put some airplane wings on it here, and some airplane wings on it here. I need to, oh, look at there's a computer mouse there.
Ah, yes.
I need to add some more things to this, and then I will paint it all one color, to make it look like metal.
There is this particular type of paint that you use on this?
No, just Home Depot spray paint, mostly. What I will do, like this is a green paint painted over a black subsurface. Mm-hmm. But what I will do is I will take black paint, when I'm done painting that, I'll take black paint and white black paint over the whole thing, and then wipe it off.
So you've got the textured look and the
Exactly, and
modulation of
the black
color.
paint sticks in all the little cracks and crevices and really enhances those and makes them pop.
Now,
and then-
what are the teeth on that fish?
The teeth are a couple combs, hair combs, that I painted white, and I put some little whiskers on him that would just,
So you used a heat gun to bend the combs?
yeah. Well, I don't know, I must have. I had a torch at the time, and I think I just heated it up a little bit. But then I screwed them in place so they stay that way. And then there's pieces of plastic that are cut out. These are welding goggles
Oh, okay.
that are on there. This is a spatula.
That's cute.
This was the top of a ceiling lamp that was right up
Oh, the
next.
video?
Yeah. And I just beat the snot out of it and flattened it out and made it a tail. And it was fun doing these whiskers because these are metal. So I just heat up the metal and then poke it in.
Ah,
And then cut it and heat it up, poke it in, cut it. You know. So they're all kind of melted right in place. Here we have Thor's
yes.
helmet.
Following out, yes.
Yep. What I like about this is that it has these nice wings on it. And I've actually taken the wings off another helmet and used it on a piece, which I have right over here. So here, you can see on the side, those are the wings
Oh,
off,
yes, definitely.
off of Thor's helmet. This is one of those items that it was left at my door, and it was a vacuum cleaner. If you look at this, I'll look at this camera up here. This was a vacuum cleaner, and I saw this long handle on it, and this little belly shape here, and I said, that's a sea creature. So I put a spatula on for the tail. And then I said, well, what am I going to use for the head? I could use just the ball
Yeah.
or something, but, you know, we got to go beyond the obvious.
Yes.
So I said, let's see how a Nerf gun would look there. And the Nerf gun had the same kind of shape that came off the taper of the vacuum cleaner. So I took a Nerf gun and I cut it in half and then added it to the front of that. This came off another toy. I added that on. These eyes came off. For some reason in the house, the shower curtain fell down. And the hooks in the shower curtain broke.
Those are the doodads on the shower.
So these are the doodads on the shower curtains.
Oh, wow.
So that's what I tell my
How
wife.
do you keep your house together with what he does?
So those are the, you know, they made nice,
Because I thought at first they were marbles, maybe.
no, those shower curtains, you know,
Ah, okay.
they could have been marbles, but, you know, the shower curtain was right there in front of me, so I, you know. But then there's some pieces on here that were just, that I took off other little things just to add, like this little piece here was off a mechanical Godzilla. And I like the I don't know if you can see that. I like the little spikes
Yeah.
that came up. And that kind of added something onto it. And I said, so okay, so I made that, sanded that all down, stuck that on, and then these things were the wings off of some little action figure.
Now, do you put this together with an epoxy glue, or how are you holding all this together?
It's screw and glue. I use screws that you can see over here. Mm-hmm. They're self-drilling screws. So they have a little drill bit on the end of them. And when you...
Okay, yeah, they open up.
They actually just, they don't open up, they just go through and make a hole, and then the threads on the screw hold it in place.
Oh, okay.
So you can just put those in, you don't need to pre-drill a hole or anything, you just zip them in. And I use these finish washers on top of it to accent that they're screws. Otherwise, they're just screws on there. It gives it another level of depth on there to put those finish washers on. And then I use E6000 for my glue, because that's a very strong industrial glue.
No, what is this again?
It's called E6000.
Okay.
And it's the only disadvantage is that it usually takes 24 hours to dry. So I have to kind of work and know that some things will be left overnight, and what is the last thing I'm going to glue together so I can come back the next day and work on it some more. So the eyes are probably glued on. The rest is, these are glued on, and then all the screws that are on there. This is one of my favorite pieces. I really like the way that it turned out. And again, I painted it with the two types of different solvent paints. Went over it with black paint and wiped it off so it fits in all the crevices. But then I can go back in, like you can see, these faux Romex shielding, that was part of the Nerf gun to begin with. But I just went in and painted them copper to try to make them pop off of that. I have people come into my studio and I explain to them, I said, yeah, this was a vacuum cleaner, and there's a spatula for the tail and a Nerf gun for the head, and they go, wow, now I see it. And I say, if I can hide something right in front of you,
Right.
then I know I'm doing a good job.
Yeah.
I want the piece to speak as one piece, not individual pieces. That's why when you're building something, sometimes I'll have to paint it completely black to fool my eye so that I can look at the shapes, because you're drawn to the different colors. I've kind of developed an eye. See, now that's what I call a bendy. Yeah, that you can do all kinds of things with that. I don't know what you would use it for, but I've used several of these on other things. You can even put it together or stand up by itself. Again, it's the item that I like how it looks, so I'll find a way to use it. I don't know how, but that doesn't matter because that comes in the future.
But when you're working, do you work on a large table with a lot of things out in front of you so that you can sort of mix and match and find you think you're going in this direction, so let me find a shape that matches what I'm going for? Or
I
how?
do. I work on a large table, and usually it's a big mess, and I have the basis, and then I'll paw through things, and I have small bins of items that I call my embellishments. So I'll just kind of dig through those and say, oh, look at, I have the eyes, I have the wings for that, I have this or that or the other thing. And play with it. I hold it up to that and look at it and say, no, that doesn't work. Try something else. Then they say, oh, that doesn't work. Try something else. And then, oh, hey, that's not bad. Let me try that, and then work from there. So by the time I get done with the project, I've got a table full of stuff that now I have to put back and use on something else. When I first started doing this, I was panicking because I couldn't find enough stuff. I didn't have enough junk, so I was going out I was looking for anything, And you got to develop a sharp eye, because sometimes I'm be driving down the road and you only got a few seconds to see what's in somebody's trash barrel. It's like
Garbage day, yes.
Yeah, garbage day is like, oh, wait a minute, I see something over there. And you got to stop the truck, jump out, throw it in the back, and then you're off. I stopped one day. There was a trash bin, and there was a plastic bin, and on top of it was a Mr. Potato Head. And I said, oh, look at that. So I stopped and I looked. The bin, it was almost this big, and it was full of Mr. Potato Heads.
What in the name of God were they doing with them all?
They were throwing them out. And so I got all these Mr. Potato Heads. And I've still got probably 80% of them. Yeah? But, you can't throw Mr. Potato Head away. Mrs. Potato Head would miss him. So I call this one my bearded sea dragon, because he's got a little beard also.
Yeah.
We were talking about embellishments. This guy is another one of my favorite pieces because of the embellishments that he has. I found this action figure at Savers, and his head was damaged. Not a problem. So I got to replace his head. And again, you go beyond the obvious. You know, I could just put a tennis ball on there and make a head, but that wouldn't be very appealing. So I looked through my bins of embellishments and came up with this dinosaur tail and figured, well, that would make an interesting head. And on the back side of it, he's got a breathing hole.
Oh, wow, yes.
So that was perfect. I could make a head out of that. You don't need eyes. Sometimes I like leaving eyes off of things because that lets the viewer determine where the eyes are or what they're looking at or if they're looking at anything. And then I added these wings that came off another little toy and this backpack that's kind of a oxygen concentrator generator. And when I make things like that, I have no idea what I'm doing or how it would work. But I figure I can make it look like it was supposed to work. So I add things on there like the top of it is like a heat sink. So when it gets hot, the heat just dissipates. That makes sense. And then the back has, a little round antenna to take in, all the waves that come across, or there's a gear on the back. There's a few gears on the back because obviously things have to move, and in steampunk, gears are big, that type of thing using gears. But what I also did was I made a little rubber band to go around the gear and around part of the backpack to look like, that gear turned something to actually make it work. So if you looked at it close, it was like, wow, that must really do something. And that's the goal, is to make it look like everything is supposed to fit together. And that's what I love about doing this, is taking things that don't go together and putting them together as if they looked naturally that way. And if I can accomplish that and I'm happy with that, then that satisfies my needs.
We have a comment that this is very enjoyable. We love the steampunk aspect.
Oh, thank you. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. And it's just that taking items, again, that don't go together and making something out of them that, I guess most of the time I'm trying to please myself. And if it pleases the audience and my customers, then I guess I'm successful.
I see something like this in a film. Somebody depicting a short little video using some of these caricatures that you're building here.
I've had a number of people come in the studio and ask if I make props for movies.
Right.
And I say no, but if you know of anybody, you please hook me up. But yeah, a lot of people have commented on that things like this and some of the other figures that I have in my studio would make great animated features.
Yes, definitely.
And I guess, that's kind of it, as a kid in the back of my head, that's kind of, I used to read, buy the comic books and read the Marvel comic books and all that stuff that would go on. And, so that's kind of in my history also, is those type of, supernatural beings and superheroes. All right, what else we got here? Oh,
I just wanted to give you a time check at 7:45.
holy mackerel, am I doing good, huh?
Very pleasant talk, yes.
This piece over here, I'm going to walk over here. This is a piece that I put together, and I don't remember why. I guess, I know what it was. I found this piece, which was a baking pan for making heart-shaped cakes.
Oh, okay.
And I thought, well, that's really kind of cool. I could use that as a background. Then I found this brass scallop shell. And I thought, well, that would make a really cool background too. So I started with that. I had this little figurine that I found someplace. I said, all right, I'm going to make like a diorama, put that together. And so when I started, I said, okay, and I'm very anal sometimes. I very want to be symmetrical about things. But then I understand that sometimes my symmetrics have to be asymmetrical. Mm-hmm. So it's a combination of the two. But what I did is this is a plastic squirt gun, I believe it was, that I found at Savers, and I cut it in half, and now I have a nice symmetrical frame to put this in with the two sides. These are some brass horns, obviously, parts of a bicycle gear. I have no idea what this is. I found it and I said, I like the repetition of that's there. And then some watch gears, and then you have to have a little cherub just to watch over everything.
Oh, cute.
So I don't know if you can see that in the close-ups or not, but it's got a lot going on in that, and it's just kind of a nice, and I call it the birth of spring. How nice is that?
Yes.
As we move into winter. Right?
Just be happy all this rain was not snow.
Absolutely. All right, so I'm going to move this guy back. This, how am I going to do this? I got too much. See, this is what my studio looks like. I got stuff everywhere, all over the floor, and I have to keep moving it around so that I can work. Look at this. Get a close-up of that. That's a bee. I found that and I said, man, I like that. Look at those eyes.
Oh, yes.
And the wings that are on that. I said, I have no idea what I'm going to do with that, but that's something I want. So
now the bee, the eyes and all were that way?
This is exactly how the toy was.
That's originally how you bought it? You
Yeah,
found it?
it had something else coming out of the sides here that were broken off. So they were, this was at Savers and they were selling it for like $1. I said, how can you pass that up?
So frequent Savers
Yes,
visits.
I got frequent flyer miles at Savers. Yeah. This piece here was a gift from an artist friend who found it on the side of the road, just like I find my stuff.
Oh.
And it's an old Victrola horn. And when I saw this, I almost immediately thought, wow, that would make a very cool lamp. And it almost cries steampunk. Mm-hmm. So I took some upholstery tacks and put the upholstery tacks on the outside of this to give it that steampunk look. The bottom is actually from an old lamp. And then I wired the inside so that it has 3 bulbs on the inside.
Oh, okay, Edison type bulbs.
And you really can't see them as you're standing, face to it, but it lights up everything above it. Mm-hmm. The problem that I had was that it had a big chunk taken out of it. And it kind of disturbed me. It's like, well, how am I going to, work with that? What am I going to do? Am I going to fill it in? Am I going to, cover it up? Am I going to cut it back? So this actually sat in my studio for maybe 5 years because I didn't exactly know what I wanted to do with it. I started doing the rivets in it, and I got those put in, and then it's like, all right, now what am I going to do with it? And finally one day it came to me. Rather than try to cover up that a piece is missing, I said I'll incorporate that into the design. So I made a bug. Let me put it on the close-up camera. I made a bug that I can put up on the edge here and make like the bug has eaten the side of the...
Oh, clever.
Now, let me see if I can stick this guy
This
on.
is like a little kid having a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah. So there's the bug.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And he has just eaten a piece of this beautiful flower. So that's my steampunk lamp with bug. So a lot of these things I've made over the years when I get back and forth to the studio.
Okay, I have a comment on your lamp. I am so glad that I've tuned in time to hear the talk about the old Victorian piece. This is the coolest lamp ever.
Thanks. Yeah, and again, thank you very much, because I do this to please myself. And if somebody else likes it, that's validation that I gladly accept. During the pandemic, everything changed.
Yes.
I wasn't able to go to the studio, and if I did go, there was nobody there, and it was just so I stayed home a lot. But being an artist and being, somebody that has to be doing something all the time, I needed something to do. So I had picked up some cabinet cards at a flea market about a year ago. And cabinet cards are the old photographs that they took of people around 1900. And they were printed on stiff cardboard, and on the back was the advertisement for the person that took the photograph, and they were very elaborate in the Victorian scrolls, and all the photographs back when photography was young are very, straight laced. I mean, they had to stand there while the flash went off and the film developed. So most of them you can see a lot of them, I notice, are leaning on tables because they can hold that pose for a while. So you have people with their arms on the tables, or sitting in a chair. So I had an idea to take those. I love the steampunk genre, and I also like Art Nouveau. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to combine the two together and create a Steam Nouveau type of style. So I took these old photographs and I cropped out the images in those, and then started building collages using those. I'm going to put that there. Sorry, the audience can't see these. So I took the image from the cabinet cards and then started building, as I build my sculptures, in different layers, one on top of the other on top of the other, where I could take like an old ring of screws and put this ring on there, and then the background was gears, and then the front was maybe calla lilies, and then there was horns and all this stuff going on, and just build on top of one on top of the other, top of the other, top of the other in Photoshop. Mm-hmm. And I would have 20 or 25 different layers of things where I could just pull them in and pull them back. And it really got me through the pandemic.
Oh, okay.
And the quarantining at home, because I was able to keep my creative juices going and build things two-dimensionally, what I was always accustomed to building three-dimensionally.
Yeah.
Let me put up another one of these. This is one of my favorites. I'll show the audience. I call this one the cat sitter. And this was a picture of a beautiful woman sitting in a chair, one of those cabinet cards, and this is one of those hairless Egyptian cats.
Ah, okay.
And I put that on there, and of course you got to have the rat in there. But the background is a bunch of gears like steampunk. The the surface background behind it is some photographs that I took when we visited Washington State. So I have a whole library of things, just like my three-dimensional stuff where I have bins of stuff. In my computer, I have a whole library of things. A lot of the photographs I've taken over the years. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll find something that's three-dimensional and I take a picture of it. And now I can use that in my two-dimensional artwork. So those type of things that I did really kept me going through the pandemic. And I kind of, when I latch onto something, I latch onto it. So I grab an idea and then I exhaust that idea. And I've always worked that way. And I don't know whether that's good or bad. But I grab a hold of the idea and then it's one after another, after another, after another, after another, after another, after another, after another. I made over 100 of these collages. And it was like I did nothing. I mean, they were just coming out, to the point where I went through those, and now that we're coming out of the pandemic, it worked out very nice because I've kind of exhausted all my ideas for those collages. But in almost anything I've done, either in ceramics or clay or jewelry or whatever, I latch onto something and just push it to its limits over and over and over and over and over and over again. And I like the way they turned out.
Very interesting.
Put this last one up.
So is there a new trend that's clicking in your mind now to go and start?
Well, that's the problem, I've kind of exhausted the collages. The 3D stuff I still enjoy doing. I do, as I said, I have a lot of lamps that I've built, but I have so many lamps now that, I set up a workshop in my basement during the pandemic also, and go down there and putter and build lamps. And I've built so many of them that, I build them, put them in a box, seal them up, bring them to the studio, and they're sitting in the studio still in a box because I don't have any place to
display
them.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of wraps up, as far as I can tell, what I do, unless there's some other questions or people are
I have not gotten anything
tuning
in.
out.
No, I have not gotten anything else in.
These guys
and you're at 8 o'clock.
All right. 3 things I'd like to leave you with.
I do have a question.
A question.
Have you ever had a request for people to be in the portrait?
I have,
Yeah.
and I have done
So
that.
you put people in there?
Yeah. I just finished one for someone, and they're going to give it to their son for Christmas. And and I've done 3 of them so far, and that's fun. And what I will do is I will talk to the person that's commissioning that and say, okay, what is this person like? What do they do? What are their interests? Are there any quotes that they have, or any of that? And then find me a good headshot of that person. And if I get a good headshot, I've got a whole cadre of bodies that I can put them on. And I will put them on the body in a pose. And if they like reading books, I can put a book in their hands and stacks of books. If they if they like being on the beach, I can put waves in the background.
Okay.
And it becomes a vintage piece because I make it look like these, like the old cabinet cars. So it's almost like a vintage piece, and it's a lot of fun. And again, it's fun seeing people's face when I give that to them and they can pass it on.
I have a question. People want to know your website, and they also want to know if on the website you have photographs of the type of lamps that you make.
Yes.
And tell us your website, please.
My website is the Glass Ingot.
Okay.
GLASSINGOT.
Okay.
And it's called that because when I first, started the business, I was doing glass work.
Okay.
So it's the glass ingot. And on the website, there is a lot of pictures. I don't sell anything off the website. It's just all for viewing. And there's a lot of pictures of the 3D sculpture, of the lamps. There's lamps on there. I need to update it, but there are pictures of the lamps.
Well, I know if on the Chelmsford Art Society website, I have a piece about this presentation. And on the presentation piece, I have some of your work, and I put in some of the pictures of
Yeah,
lamps.
Yeah. A better place to go to view images is on my Instagram account,
Okay.
which is Bruce Wood Artist. And I just revamped that, so there's not a ton of pictures on it, but I'm trying to post a couple every day of the 3D stuff, the 2D stuff, and the lamps.
Okay.
So that's a good place to look.
Okay. So we've had, the last two questions have been about the lamps and the website.
Okay. Okay. I hope I answered that. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Oh, I got
This has been-
I got three things to do.
Oh, okay.
I only got one. Three tidbits of advice, so I can give advice out.
Okay, go right ahead.
If you're getting into the arts, or even if you're in the arts, my first bit of advice, because people ask me at times, and I don't know if I know what I'm talking about or not, but I'm going to give the advice anyways. One is learn the basics. Learn about perspective and shading and texture and composition and negative, positive spaces. I see a lot of people that they want to jump into being an artist or want to jump into the arts, and they want to bypass all of that stuff and jump right into, well, I can be a abstract painter, watch this. But their stuff never turns out like the people that know what they're doing, because they don't know the basics. And once you know the basics, I call it your artistic muscle memory. So now you know it, it's in the back there. So when I'm building stuff, or when I'm doing my collages, I don't think about, well, is that the right perspective? Is that the right shading? Is the sun coming from here, or coming from here? Did everything match up? What about the size? Because that stuff I do subconsciously because I know the basics. So once you learn the basics, it's easier to move on because you have that foundation to work from. The second piece of advice is be curious about your journey into the art world. Seek out information, seek out other artists, go to museums, go to galleries, and see what's out there. The internet is great because you can not leave your house, and you can look up different artists, you can look up different styles, you can look up what other people are doing. And basically, as an artist, we get a lot of inspiration from each other. We're always taking from each other. There's a book that I would recommend called Steal Like an Artist.
Oh, okay.
And it's about artists, and I love what the guy proposes in there, is that we all steal from each other. We see ideas and go, I like that idea. And I don't think we can exactly copy someone else because we don't have the background of that person, but that may lead us down another avenue. So you steal like an artist.
I have a request for you to repeat your Instagram name.
Instagram name, Bruce Wood Artist.
Okay.
I tried to make it simple, but thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, one more.
Oh, that's right, we're only at two.
We only got two.
We're at two.
The third thing is make a lot of art. Just make a lot of art. The more you make, the more you learn, the better you get. As long as you're trying to do better today than what you did yesterday, you can grow as an artist. So I say make a lot of art. You're going to have some great art. You're going to have some terrific failures.
Oh, don't we all do that?
Yeah, but that's part of learning. That's part of making art. So just make a lot. And as you make a lot, you can cull out what you like or don't like. But you learn from the experiences of doing that. So with those three tidbits and the book about stealing art, I'm done.
Thank you. And I just want to tell people that the next demonstration will be November 11th. And we will have Raksha Shah, who will be doing a acrylic painting presentation for us at that time. So stay tuned, and thank you, Bruce, for a delightful presentation on everything you've been able to build. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.